at 43. I'd just been named one of the most influential women in radio. Like, this was shocking that this was, I mean, I was shocked. I'm a single mom at the time. I had a condo in South Beach. Like, I had a very expensive lifestyle. I still do, but like, I'm just trying to paint the picture for everyone listening. This was not a layup, right? I am sitting there. This woman who despises me is all smiles. And it's not my first rodeo. I've been a part of many of these meetings. I know that her goal for the meeting is to get me to sign a non-disparaging agreement, a non-disclosure agreement, basically a gag order. And they do that by leveraging a check, saying, if you sign these papers, you're going to get this big check, and you can never speak about what's happened here. You can never say a bad word about the company or anyone employed by the company. And I've been a part of these meetings many times. I had worked there for 14 years. And so I saw the stack of papers. I looked at the lady. She was all smiles. She was so happy. And I remember saying, not today, not today. Like, this is it. And in that moment, I chose myself. In that moment, I chose to create confidence within me. Had I accepted that check, and this is for me personally, and I'm not judging anyone else. Everyone has a different path, a different story. But that moment for me, that woman had badgered me enough. I had put up with enough. I had put myself beneath her so too many times. I chose her in hopes that it was going to elevate me, and when it did the opposite, and I learned the hard way. Nope, I'm picking me right now.
I am so excited you guys are here today on the Justin Prince Show, because you're going to hear from an amazing woman and an absolute powerhouse. That's right, an absolute powerhouse of a person, and you will grow through this discussion. You'll have some insights and some breakthroughs and some perspectives. So Heather Monahan is she's got an incredible podcast. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's an expert on building confidence. She's an expert in the field of sales. And, you know, she's someone that I love because she's overcome the challenges to get there. I know we all have the different challenges and the different struggles, but she's really gone through it. And she's also an expert in reinvention. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you reinvent yourself? You know, as we go through this new season, economic seasons, you go through different seasons of your life. You know, how do you reinvent yourself? The people that are going to win right now in this current economy, in this current season, this current year, and so on, are people that know how to reinvent themselves. And this is an expert in this category. So, in addition to all that, she's an absolute force of nature, total powerhouse, and I'm super honored to have her on. So Heather, thank you so much for being here, and I'm like fired up for this conversation.
Justin, I'm so excited to be here. My brother from another mother. Good to see you again.
So let's start with just overcoming challenges, right? Like, there's these perspectives sometimes when things hit that you say, I am where I am because of what I've been through, and, you know, for the negative, right? And then also sometimes people say, I am where I am because of where I've been through for the positive. Like, in other words, all those challenges are what created me into me. Walk us through a little bit of you know, your upbringing and some of these original stories that helped to create your resolve and your grit and your resourcefulness. One of the things about you that I know is, like, you have this, just like, you tap into this resourceful part of you, and it comes from some of the ways that you dealt with some of the challenges that you face. So just kind of catch us up on that journey and some of the difficulties that you had to face.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting because when things suck at the time when you're in it, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back, right? Thank you, Steve Jobs, for that quote. So it's so succinct and so well said. When you're in it, it sucks, and you're not recognizing this is a gift at all. I certainly wasn't, right? I grew up poor. I hated it. I was like, this sucks. I see these other people out there living their best life. You know, it wasn't me, and I didn't understand why it wasn't, but it just was. That, you know, that's all that I saw. And so for me, I just knew this. It was like this driving force in me that, okay, if I get out and work, maybe I can find a way so I can make enough money so I don't have to live like this. I don't have to use food stamps or struggle. My mom worked 3 jobs, was a single mom with 4 kids, right? Like, it was hard. And so I saw how hard it was. My life seemed really hard. I just thought, you know, I should work, because that seems like then you get money, and that solves a lot of problems. So when I was really young, like 9 or 10, I had my first paper route, and then, you know, I hustled at like 4 in the morning or whatever crazy time it was, you know, when it was dark outside, knocking door to door, which I didn't realize at the time. I was learning sales. I was learning customer service. I was learning customer retention, customer upsell. Like, I was learning how to manage a book of business. Didn't know it at the time. Again, clueless. I was just trying to make a little bit of money so that I could have cash to do things. And so that led to me ultimately getting a job as a busboy at a diner. And then I worked the window at a fast food restaurant. And then I was like, oh, what's the next way I can make money, more money? Waitressing tables at nicer restaurants, then fine, high-end restaurants. And then the bartender made more money than me waiting tables. Boom, I'm a bartender. Then the next thing you know, so I just kept parlaying, like, what's the next step, the next thing that I can do, and just going after it. And it's funny, I'm hearing myself say this, that my corporate America trajectory was exactly the same as what I just shared with you. So I kind of took that blueprint. I graduated college, and my whole reasoning to get my job was I was bartending, as I mentioned, and I would start asking the people with the nicest cars in the parking lot, hey, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Because I was getting close to being done with school. And they'd always say, I'm in sales, I'm in sales. So I thought, I should get into sales. And so a guy was chatting me up, and he said, you should get in the wine business. That's where I work. You know the wine business because you've been bartending for years. I had been. And he's like, just, come down for an interview. So I went and got that job, started. I was one female. No, there was two females on the sales team, 98 men. And so obviously the odds were against me, right? I was very young, very green, and female in a job that really had rewarded this male masculinity and, different avatar, not who I was showing up to be. And so instead I leveraged my uniqueness I put that to work for me. Everyone would say to me, dress like a guy, do what we do. And I was like, heck no, I'm wearing a skirt to work every day. I'm wearing my hair down. I'm gonna do everything different that you guys don't do. And so I did things my own way. I became the #1 sales rep in the company within a couple of months of working there. I became the youngest brand manager at the Gala Winery at the time. And then I got sexually harassed by my boss at the time. And I didn't have a lot of confidence, even though on the outside it looked like I did. I just quit because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how, people are gonna think it's my fault. People are gonna label me the difficult woman because I'm in this male-dominated business and I was killing it, but I had this awful situation that I couldn't deal with anymore, and I didn't know how to stand up for myself and say, I'm gonna hire an attorney, you're not gonna treat me like, I didn't even know, that didn't even cross my mind. So I remember I left there and I took this leap of faith that I'd find something else. I was living with my boyfriend at the time. Oh my gosh, Justin, you didn't know you were getting all this. And his dad owned a bud distributor. And so he was in the liquor business, which I had been in. And he said, hey, come to this event with me tonight. We have to go, for my dad. So we go to this event. And one thing I know is walk around and chat people up. You never know who you're going to meet. And if you need opportunity, which I did, you got to start opening doors. So I was literally going person to person, introducing myself to people at this event. And I introduced myself to this guy, and we hit it off immediately and start chatting it up. And he's like, you should work for me. And I said, you can't afford me. Now, I will pause and say, this is before Google, people, so don't laugh at me. I didn't have a chance to Google him and see who he was, right? And he said, I can't afford you. Really? Give me a number. And I said, $80,000. And I was 22, maybe 23 at the time. And he said, sold, you start tomorrow. Remember, I didn't have a job, right? So I'm like, okay, great. So I start working for him. He is a wonderful human being. I mean, far from perfect, but he wasn't a dirtbag like this other guy I had worked for, right? Like, he had a great wife, and they would, bring me to their home, and he mentored me. He was my first real, mentor in business. And he said, I see me in you. I see so much ahead of you. He really believed in me. And then I went home one night, and my boyfriend had been cheating on me, and I caught him. And I went back to work the next day like a different person, like many women would be, devastated, wearing my heart on my sleeve, crying. And my boss mentor brought me in his office and said, I don't know who this person is. Why don't you jump on a plane with me? I'm going to make you my partner, and I'm going to make you a very wealthy young lady. But you can't ask me where you're going to move. And you can't ask me, anything else. Just trust in me and jump on this plane. And I said, that means I don't have to run into my ex-boyfriend anymore? Okay. And so I took this leap of faith based on running from something that seemed so horrible. So there's always like a silver lining. Like, I thought my life was over. What a blessing that I escaped the situation. I would have never taken this partnership and equity opportunity had he not cheated on me. It was a gift. It was a push to push me into this next phase. I just didn't know it at the time. And so we bought a $25 million company. My old boss dropped me off in Saginaw, Michigan. And he said, the faster you accelerate revenue, the sooner we can sell the company, the sooner you get out and you get rich. And I said, okay. So I didn't take a
How old were you
vacation.
at this point?
I was 24 when he dropped me off. And
Sweet.
I was 27 when I got out of there. We sold that company for 55 million, netting 30 million in profit. And I put my name on the map really in business as someone who can drive revenue in teams very quickly and flip situations around. And so that's what I became known as in the media business. I went to work for a publicly traded company next. I pitched myself for a job that didn't exist, VP of sales. I was told no. So, back then I wasn't married. I didn't have a kid. I just started dialing other companies looking for a new job. And I went back to the president of the company one last time to offer, hey, you sure you don't want to create this position and elevate me to VP of sales? And he said, no, I don't. We like where you are. And I said, great, then this is my resignation. And he said, hang on. He ran outside, came back 5 minutes later, and he said, I want to award you this newly created position, VP of sales. I said, well, where did you go? And he said, well, I went to call my dad, the CEO. I couldn't make that decision on my own. And I learned this great lesson in that moment. Never take a no from someone who can't give you a yes, right? I was asking someone not qualified to approve something, this great idea that I had that was going to impact the bottom line incredibly well, and did, but he wasn't empowered to say yes to me. So me taking a no from him was blocking the company from really getting that opportunity. So I took that job. I got promoted 3 more times. I became the chief revenue officer. I was named most influential woman in radio. We had more than double the company's revenues in my tenure. I had been responsible for over $1 billion in revenue and thousands of employees. And then the CEO I'd worked for became ill and elevated his daughter to replace him. And she fired me immediately.
So let's stop right there for a sec, because there's so many key lessons in that. Let me ask you this. You talked about how you didn't have a lot of confidence, but you were showing up like you did. As you look back now, do you feel like that statement's true? So in other words, like, let's say confidence is on a scale, right? So from 1 to 10. Did you really feel like you had like a 1 of confidence or a 2? Or do you look back now and be like, no, I had a 6 or a 7 or an 8? And how did you go to a point, because one of the things that you wrote an entire book on like creating confidence. Like, how did you start building that confidence over time? Because if you hear your story went from like bloom where you're planted, bloom where you're planted, bloom where you're planted, and like you started stringing all these wins together. Just one win led to another win, led to another one. How much baseline confidence did you have both as you started? I'm starting just back in the paper route, and then also as you kept moving up, right? How much baseline confidence did you have as you went into each thing? And then how did you create it and grow it over time? Like, what were you doing to build that baseline confidence?
When I was young, I was at a 1. I really did not have much confidence at all. I was consumed with what other people thought about me. I was consumed with wanting to have a different life than I had. I would lie to people about where I lived. I mean, like, bad, like no confidence. And people aren't going to like this, but a lot of people say, fake it till you make it's wrong. That's what I did. I faked it. And for me, it worked for me, right? So I would just start hustling and showing up. And the more traction I would get and learn something, like I said, the paper route, I started doing well with the paper route. That got me into the restaurant business. The more I would like take that next step up, I'd start seeing, hey, Heather, you have some value here. Like you're progressing. And so again, it's extrinsic, not intrinsic, which is not great, but it was still a win for me. So I started getting confidence and validation from outside of me, which again is not ideal, but it was helping me to see that I wasn't going to be stagnant. I wasn't going to stay at a 1 forever. There were other ways, to bolster my confidence. And then of course, when you start doing things that you're naturally good at, you're going to feel more confident. When you naturally are surrounded by some good people who like you or cheering you on, you're going to start feeling a little bit better about yourself. Some of these things just happen. Like the fact that I got into sales, that was a gift. I was good at it. So when you're naturally good at something and you're going to enjoy it, you're going to succeed versus the people around you, you're going to get, this feeling of confidence. So I think that, I landed in some of these situations around some good people that had my, looking out for me, encouraging me. And of course that I was doing something I was actually good at really helped bolster my confidence. So in business, my confidence grew rapidly in my early 20s, very quickly. It was in my personal life that took a really, really long time. And it's important for people to know just because you're confident in one thing doesn't mean you're confident in everything. And that's okay. And just because you're confident in one thing, I've seen people, great friends of mine, that have been super confident in their marriages, and then that's flipped on its head, and their confidence has, disappeared overnight because of situations that have occurred, right? So things aren't static. They don't just stay one way forever. You have such an ability to impact how you feel about yourself, your situations, and what you can do to change it through your confidence and the action steps you take or you don't take.
So one of the things that was happening for you is you had some outside people that basically saw something in you maybe you didn't see in you, and was encouraging that in you, right? Was seeing that and talking about it. Abraham Lincoln said, "I'm a success today because I had a friend who believed in me and I didn't have the heart to let him down." Man, sometimes it's a parent or a coach or someone from church or a friend or an employer that just says, "Hey, you got you got something in you." You kind of give them some weight, their words some weight. What was happening? How was it manifesting your lack of confidence in your personal life? And what did you do to switch that and to build confidence in your personal life?
For me, oftentimes it takes hitting rock bottom. I remember it was when I got divorced. I had this alone time with myself. I just had a baby. I had a 1-year-old. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm a new mom. I was a VP of sales for a company, a national company, flying all around the world, leaving my son with a nanny, and now telling my husband to leave, right? I remember sitting down and saying to myself, how did you get here? This is not the life you wanted, right? What role did you, it's easy to point out, but take that finger and point it at yourself. What did you do to end up here? And so that really, sadly or wonderfully, led me on this journey into figuring out who I am, and going to therapy and going to hypnotists and spending a lot of time running and just thinking, and instead of trying to escape everything and just stay busy and work and make money, that's what I had done for years, and just ignore the other stuff. Get intentional about what does a future look like that I want to have? Who do I want to show up? And what's so funny is that whole process changed me so much in business, which is shocking to a lot of people. I was so hard on people when I was younger. I had this unrealistic expectation because I work at an unrealistically high expectation I hold myself to a super high standard, and I work around the clock, and I wanted everyone to be the same exact way that I was. But once I went down this journey, once I became a mother, once I got divorced and saw I'm not perfect, I'm far from perfect, and I am new at this mom thing and I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was very humbling. And so that whole process of accepting that and diving into it made me a better leader, made me more innovative, more creative, and allowed me to give myself permission to not feel shame when I got fired, and instead step into it and own it and flip it on its head and put it to work for me, and start seeing things very differently.
I feel like as you share your story, I feel like you have you own it feels like you own your stuff. You kind of are you know what, I'm going to own my stuff. So in other words, that you don't whine, blame, complain, make excuses that much. Now, it doesn't mean you never do, right? I think all of us at some point sit there and just aw, but.
Oh yeah, no, I have my days I feel bad for me, for sure. Recently, by the way.
But I feel like you had a lot of personal responsibility, where you're you know what? What have I done wrong, or what kind of life do I want to create? Where do you feel like that came from? This inherent personal responsibility. I'm gonna look in the mirror and own my own stuff. Was that a process for you? Was that instilled in you? Was that something? Where did you gain that personal responsibility versus just kind of blaming your situation, your circumstances?
I don't know. I guess it wasn't working the other way, right? So it was sort of what I was doing wasn't working. That's look at the data. The data doesn't lie. That's one thing I learned from business always, and that's never going to change, right? So I apply that to my life. I'm Heather, look at it. I remember waking up saying, how did I get here? I don't like where I am. The data's not going to lie. Let's go back and look at the choices I'm making, right? And I started looking at, these are the people I'm picking. The fingers pointing out. I'm spending time lecturing other people about what they should do and telling them how they should change. That's not working. Okay, so if that didn't work, what could work? I didn't know. My parents were divorced twice over. It wasn't it hadn't been modeled for me, which is okay. I have plenty of friends who it was modeled for and have had amazing lives, and then their parents died and they have it so hard now in their 40s, when I had it hard as a kid. You know what I'm saying? So it's listen, nobody has a perfect life. But no, I didn't have people really modeling that stuff for me. It was more, what I'm doing is not working. I know I'm able to look at a movie, watching it, what I've done. So why don't I try the opposite and test and try? And I literally live everything, like whether I'm writing a keynote or whether I'm doing a podcast, I'm going to test and try it. I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to see what works and what doesn't work, and understand done will always be better than perfect. I'll learn, I'll get better, and I'll move on. And so I kind of approached my own life that way. I was 33 years old when I started this whole like self journey. And then isn't it amazing? Doors just start opening and you start like finding Tony Robbins books and personal development's an actual thing. And I'm like, what is that? Right? It wasn't as in your face as it is today, but somehow I was drawn to the right things and access some good information.
What's interesting now is your voice and your perspective is now becoming one of the voices that people are turning to for this next generation. You know what I'm saying? Like this next person, it's like, I want to go to the next level and I want to step up. You've become an international speaker, one of the top 50 speakers in the world, a TED Talk speaker. You've built an incredible podcast, the Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan podcast. You've written multiple books, both Overcoming Your Villains and then Confidence Creator. You're going to speak, and I want to emphasize this, you're going to speak in Saudi Arabia here shortly, aren't you?
Wait, before I even tell you about that one, this just hit me because I brought up Tony Robbins. Last year, Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins' partner, reached out to me and they brought me on. I spoke at their live virtual event and they put me on the cover of their magazine in November. And like, it's so surreal for me. I taught a course for them, for their mastermind. These are people now that I work with. I'm blessed and grateful for the opportunity. Again, I'm not acting like, I'm way junior still, and I'm just grateful to be in the room with them. However, I put the reps in, like I have my own path that I've taken, the things that I've done, but it is surreal to sit here today and be like, oh my gosh, I'm remembering as I'm sharing with you, like the first time I saw like an infomercial for, Tony or Dean and and then now to be, in the office with them, filming with them. It is so surreal, and it just reminds me to tell everyone listening, you can't dream too big. Like there is no dream too big. Keep dreaming bigger, but you also need to take the action steps, and hold the belief that it is possible for you. You do deserve it, and make it about other people. Make it about the people you can impact and the good that you can do, and then you want to get up every day and swing for the fences and go for more. Now, to your point, this is crazy at a whole nother level. The largest technology conference in the world, LEAP conference in Saudi Arabia, reached out to me 6 months ago, and they wanted to have me come in to keynote, for the investor stage and the main stage. And now I'm doing a lot more than that. In March, the first week of March, it's the 4th through the 7th in Saudi Arabia, and I am like the whitest white girl. I spend 99% of my time in the U.S., and it's like a big leap for me, literally and figuratively, to go out there and do this. And of course I'm nervous. Of course I'm scared. And people are like, what are you going to wear? And do you know the culture? And like, no, I have no idea. Like I am going all in on this the same way I did when Dean first called me and I was heading out to the studio with him. Like I get nervous. I get scared. I'm putting myself out over my skis, which is an expression you hear often. Like I'm jumping into something I know nothing about. There's the founder of TikTok is speaking. The founder of Zoom is speaking. Listen, I'm going to be next to all the biggest boys out there. And I'm the only blonde, blue-eyed American girl that's showing up, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. However, Justin, the thing, it's so scary, but the thing that drives me to go do these scary things is I'm so excited for that moment I take that stage and I'm looking out and seeing females' faces in the Middle East. Like, I'm going to show them what is possible for them. Not because I'm saying I'm so great that I'm there, more that I'm saying I'm so freaking scared that I'm here, but I came for you because I want you to know everything and anything you desire within you can come true. You got to just move through the challenges. Don't let the dirt bag stop you. Yes, you may have to pivot. You may have to redirect. Don't let the crappy lady that doesn't like you, that fires you, ends your career. Heck no. Let that be your launch point. And that's why I'm going to Saudi Arabia. And I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I want to get into this because I talk a lot about dreams and vision and goals, and you do too. And my friends, so much of this is identity. It's just like, you know what, I can make things happen and I can dream big dreams. But I think sometimes when we hear that stuff, we don't hear her second part, which is like you got to take action and you got to get going and you've got to move forward.
Yeah.
So you're 43 years old. You're at the top of your
When I
game.
got fired, I was 43. I'm
Yeah,
43
you've
now.
driven $1 billion in sales. This gal comes in. She doesn't, it's kind of a competitive nature. She doesn't like you, whatever the case might be. And next thing you know, she's fired you, and you have an 18-month non-compete in your space, right? So you're kind of in a weird limbo land as far as what do you do next, and how do you reinvent yourself? And I specifically want you to talk about this because I think a lot of us, the world's shifted, the world is shifting, the economies are shifting. It's a different time, and so it's like, how do you consistently reinvent yourself to go pursue those bigger dreams, bigger passions, bigger goals? Sometimes you're hearing this, you're driving to a job that you're just like, I don't even love this job. Like, tell people, if you don't see yourself doing it in 5 years, don't do it for 5 more minutes. Like, you want to live a life that you're chasing some goals and some dreams, and it feels congruent with who you are. So walk us through the reinvention process, because Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and speaking on the stages and going to Saudi Arabia and the books and the podcast, that wasn't even you, just a number of years ago. And then here you are. So walk us through, how did you pick yourself up off the mat, reinvent yourself, and then go create the success that you've created?
So the biggest pivotal moment for me at 43, I'd just been named one of the most influential women in radio. Like, this was shocking that this was, I was shocked. I'm a single mom at the time. I had a condo in South Beach. Like, I had a very expensive lifestyle. I still do, but I'm just trying to paint the picture for everyone listening. This was not a layup, right? I am sitting there, this woman who despises me is all smiles, and it's not my first rodeo. I've been a part of many of these meetings. I know that her goal for the meeting is to get me to sign a non-disparaging agreement, a non-disclosure agreement, basically a gag order. And they do that by leveraging a check, saying, if you sign these papers, you're gonna get this big check, and you can never speak about what's happened here. You can never say a bad word about the company or anyone employed by the company. And I've been a part of these meetings many times. Oh, I had worked there for 14 years. And so I saw the stack of papers. I looked at the lady. She was all smiles. She was so happy. And I remember saying, not today, not today. Like, this is it. And in that moment, I chose myself. In that moment, I chose to create confidence within me. Had I accepted that check, and this is for me personally, and I'm not judging anyone else. Everyone has a different path, a different story. But that moment for me, that woman had badgered me enough. I had put up with enough. I had put myself beneath her so too many times. I chose her in hopes that was going to elevate me, when it did the opposite, and I had learned the hard way. Nope, I'm picking me right now. And I remember I smiled at her. I pushed her papers back to her. I said, I didn't write either of your memos. I'm not signing either one. If you have nothing else to say to me, I'll be on my way. And I stood up with all of the grace and class within me and pulled it together and exited beautifully. And I took all the power out of that room. And I'm so proud of that moment, because I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from. I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage. I didn't know how I was going to pay for my kids' school. Like, I had no idea what was going to happen next, but I still chose myself. And
so I want to make sure I want to make sure we paint this picture. This is not only not get the money. This is not get the money and not know where your next check's coming from. And this is like end the career at that point, right? In that particular business, right? I mean, this is like a serious do or die moment, right?
Yeah, and 18 months, I can't go work for a competitor.
Yeah, so I mean, the amount of courage at this point is just off the charts.
But you know what it was? I hit a breaking point. She had bullied me quietly for so long at work. And behind the scenes, I had started intentionally working on creating more confidence within me for like about a month prior to that. So I've been doing some self-work around, I don't like how I'm showing up as like this Target version of Heather. Like, this is BS. I'm not doing this anymore. And so I had been taking action steps towards being a stronger version of me, which probably, accelerated my getting fired process, which is fine. It was a blessing. In that moment, it chose me. That was number one, right? So that was one of the biggest ways to reinvent myself and create confidence in myself. Number two, I walked out of there having no idea what I was going to do, and I posted, I've just been fired. And I owned it. I didn't attach shame to it. I remember saying to people, I didn't do anything bad. I didn't steal money. I didn't hurt anyone. I did a great job for that company, for the shareholders. Like, I'm so proud of what I built. I'm so proud of who I am and what I did. I don't need to feel guilty, because a lot of people said, don't post about this. You're going to put a negative attached to your brand. And I'm like, no, it's a truth. And when you step into and own your shame, when you claim your shame, shine a light on shame, you extinguish it. And I started rocking it. I was like, I actually feel really good. What I realized, I was owning a white space. Nobody was talking. Those posts went viral. Millions of views, blew my social media up. And that landed me on the Elvis Duran show. I jumped on a plane having no idea what I was doing and walked out onto the Elvis Duran show. And halfway through that interview, I posted about this today, ironically. He said to me, well, Heather, obviously you're writing a book. I wasn't writing a book, right? Like, I was the social one growing up. My sister was the smart one. The smart one writes a book, not the social one. I literally got on a plane and Googled, how do you write a book? I still have the papers. I printed them out, and it basically just says write, like, don't overthink it, write, which I did. And then I was like, has any jackball ever written a book? Like, do I need some kind of like pedigree? And I saw all these jackballs had written books. I'm like, then another jackball can write a book. Like, let's go. Like, take the pressure off yourself. And that day, that man, Elvis, spoke a belief and a truth and a conviction into me. And I ran with it and really like used Google as my mentor through it all, because I had no clue what I was doing. And for a long time, I wouldn't admit that I was working for myself. I wouldn't admit, I was so embarrassed of like, this was a different shame, like that I wasn't a part of a big brand. I wasn't a C-suite executive. And then one day I remember my friend's husband explained to me, you keep toggling back and forth with one side on the river of like, oh, I'm going back to corporate. I'm just going to wait for that 18 months to expire. I'm just doing this temporarily. And the other part of you is like, I'm writing a book and now I'm speaking at it, like, and I work for myself. He's like, you're never going to be great at anything if you toggle both sides, pick a side. And he goes, and you know what the right side is. And he said, because you need a little push right now. And when I had that visual in my mind, I'm like, he's right. Like, I'm never going to succeed if I'm trying to like hang on to both stories. And so I let go of that corporate story, and I changed my LinkedIn profile. I put like, I work for myself. I started my own company, like whatever. And when you do that and go all in on something, things start accelerating.
Oh, so many good things. You and I had this discussion before that when Elvis said to you, you're writing a book, right? I think sometimes what we do, there's an old saying that says, argue for your limitations and they're yours. Have you ever seen that where it's like, someone's like, they're like, you can do it. And you're like, no, me, I can't do it. So when we start arguing for all of our limitations, like no, I don't have enough education. I don't know enough. I don't have enough money. Like we start arguing for all of our limitations. And man, if you argue for your limitations, they're yours. You got to keep those versus arguing for your strengths. One thing about you is you kind of like argue for like, you know what? I can figure it out and I will figure it out. And you just go start resourcefully, figuring it out and listening to someone that said you've got what it takes, and you listened and believed them versus, arguing against them and arguing for all the reasons you couldn't do it. And then this idea of shifting your identity, even on as simple as like your LinkedIn profile, like you just shifted from
Powerful.
Straddling the river to like going all in. I tell people there's no lukewarm winners. You're either in or out. If you're in, be all in. If you're out, cool, be all out. But don't kid yourself that you're gonna halfway something and really get where you want to go. Talk about that just for a second. Go deeper on going all in, your perspective of this. So as you're listening to this, you have dreams, you have goals, you're working on, ideas, or you want to go chase that dream of becoming a coach or a speaker or whatever the case is for the person listening. What is your advice on going all in? How did you get to that mental shift to say, you know what, like I'm going to go burn the boats and make this thing happen?
It didn't happen overnight. Take the pressure off of yourself. This was probably 2 years after I got fired. I had that conversation. I actually wrote a chapter about it. It was so instrumental in my career. I wrote a chapter about it in my second book about this conversation I'm sharing with you. It was Labor Day weekend. I'll never forget. And I had been on my own for a while. My first book was out. It was doing really well. So maybe it was a year and a half in. And so, for anyone listening, listen, you're not in your dream job. Start building the side hustle on the side. You don't have to go all in today. In fact, I wish I had known this back when I was in corporate. I would have side hustled and started building my own thing on the side long before, so that when I did get shot, I'd be like at launch point to really take off with my business as well, right? So I wasn't there. Build the side hustle on the side. You don't have to go all in on day one. I had to because I didn't have a choice. But when I look back, you know what? That was such a blessing, such a gift. I didn't have the courage to do it on my own. I wasn't happy where I was. I couldn't stand working side by side with that lady. Like, it was killing me over time, right? It was wearing on me, but I didn't have the courage to make the leap. So the leap was made for me. I believe, God puts this potential in us, and I wasn't reaching on my own. So he helped give me like a little push, which I'm now so incredibly grateful for. And I have no ill will towards that woman. Like, it's not about not liking someone. It was a gift that I couldn't give myself. So I'm so grateful for it. What was happening in my mind, I was giving a lot of energy and attention to, do I go back when the 18-month expires, right? Because I guess I still must have had 6 months left at this time. So I was still, pondering in my mind, like, who should I, start talking to, and should I start, having these conversations, and when is it legal, and putting energy and thought. And whenever you do that, like, wherever you put your energy, that's, what you're going to create ultimately. So as I was doing that, but then at the same time, I'm giving speeches on my new book and focusing on selling my book and focusing on branding myself around these topics around confidence, and how am I marketing myself, and how am I showing up. It was a conflict of interest. I wasn't going to be a successful author speaker if I was interviewing for other C-suite jobs back in corporate America and media, where I had just left, right? Like, I didn't have enough bandwidth to do both successfully. And so when he really leaned into me to say, you're afraid, like, he called me out, you're scared, it's uncomfortable. Well, guess what? If you feel uncomfortable, that means you're on the right path. Don't go back to what was comfortable, because you had outgrown it. And the more he and I kind of talked through that, I realized for a decade in corporate America, I had been comfortable. I knew what the quarter was going to look like. I knew what the year was going to look like. I knew what the day was going to look like. And what was really scary as an entrepreneur is I didn't even know what the afternoon was going to look like. Yeah. And that felt so scary to me and unsettling. I had to start accepting uncertainty means ultimate possibility, right? Like, the uncertainty is to be celebrated. I write about my second book, Overcome Your Villains. Fear is a green light that means go, and go faster. And the more I focus on, when I feel fear, I see the green light. I literally see a green light. I'm like, go, Heather. Like, when Saudi called and I felt so scared, that was my answer. Everyone's like, how did you make the decision? I'm like, the minute I got super scared, I knew it's on. I got to go. I can't not go. Because, going back to what I said earlier, you're either creating confidence in any moment, or you're chipping away at it. If I'm moving away from fear, I know what that looks like. That looks like complacency. That looks like why I end up getting fired, right? Like, that I was sitting somewhere I didn't belong. I'd outgrown. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to make those same mistakes again. I'm going to make these new, better decisions for me, which means step into fear and do it faster.
I love these little redirects you did in your brain. When you feel fear, you go faster. That's so counterintuitive to how, I feel fear, I pull back. For you, in other words, it's like a red light, right? I see that and I pull back. Yours is a green light. And my friends, as you hear this, I just think it's so important that you can rewire these associations in your brain. In other words, I tell people, you're not who you are who you were born to be. Heather was born to be the one that we're seeing and experiencing right now. And so she felt fear, she leaned into it. There's an old saying that says, do the thing you fear the most, and the death of fear is certain. In other words, if you want to kill fear, do the thing. Like, lean into it, go for it, versus lean away from it. God, what an interesting redirect, the way that you've positioned that. I was on the phone. You and I have somewhat of a similar experience where at 43, I was terminated, without even a phone call for the business I'd been building for 11 years. And I was on the phone with a friend of mine. She says to me, she said, Justin, it was kind of a time where I, almost needed a little pick-me-up maybe. She said, Justin, she said, I have a word for you. And I go, what's up? And she goes, trust the redirect. Trust the redirect. Trust the redirect, that God's in the details of your life, and he's redirecting your life for good. And so you think you want to pull right, but God's saying, no. I'm gonna redirect you to the left. And I think that's what happened for you. How did you find trust in the redirect for you? Because you're going down full tilt, full speed, and then boom, and then you started to find a new redirection. How did you trust that? What were you doing to lean into the trust in the redirect?
I was fighting it, right? Like, that's why the beginning for me was really bumpy in many ways, because I was making it harder on myself because I wasn't trusting it. I've had to discipline myself to get myself to trust it. One of the ways I've done that successfully, I just was doing this. I ask God for signs all the time. I'm constantly asking God, please give me signs that this is the right partnership, the right idea, that I'm on the right track. And if I don't see signs, like, I really believe, I'm like, okay, something's off here. Like, I trust my gut. I listen. I'm very, very much listen to my instinct. But one of the things that's been helpful for me is I have a notebook. I'm actually looking at it over here, where I write down what I'm grateful for, and I do it. Gratitude, living in gratitude is so important. Like, doing things that make you feel happy and joyful is so important. But for me, it's more to remind myself that when, like, okay, these are the signs, Heather. Like, you keep asking for the signs. Here's all your signs, right? Because sometimes in a bad day, in a bad afternoon, I forget. So that's where my gratitude practice and discipline really is helpful for me.
Yep.
Yes, it's great to feel gratitude, and I'm all for that, but I really use it for those moments that I'm lost and I'm not trusting my redirect. I go back and say, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Here's a great story, an example of this. It's so crazy. I sold my condo in South Beach. My son and I his school is a whole other direction. We wanted to live closer to school. So we were moving to a new part of the city in Miami. We'd never lived before. I'm like, I just want to rent because I don't want to be too committed to one location. We have to see. I found a place. I'm like, I've got the place. I've been stalking it. Now we closed on my place. We can make the offer on the other one. Place is gone. Somebody else gets it. I'm devastated, Justin. I was like sitting outside the property. I'm like, this was my place. I saw rainbows over it. It was God telling me it was like, I was talking myself into it. Like I was forcing myself to be upset. And so I called my realtor. I'm like, we got to go. I'm never going to find anything. I was so negative. And so he takes me to a bunch of places. I find nothing. I find this one place. I'm like, I'm just going to make an offer. And my son's like, you don't seem happy. I'm like, I'm not. It's difficult. I don't love it, but whatever. He's like, then Mom, this does not have God's hand on it. Trust in God. Trust in this. This is not for you. Because of at the time, I don't know, he was probably 14 at the time. I said, that was really well said. I'm going to respect you. And I want to honor him. I'm like, I put the phone down. I'm like, I'm not making the offer. The next day, this is like incredible. My realtor takes me, we have 3 places to see. The first 2, I'm like, I hate it. I'm there 60 seconds. I'm like, let's leave. This is not it. The third place we walk in, it's where I live right now. And I like start crying. I'm like, this is my place.
That's so cool.
Made the offer that day, came through. We have been here for a year and a half. We are so happy here. Like I didn't even know there was a place like this that existed. And so that's in my gratitude, like to never forget that. Trust the redirect, Heather. Trust this process. The redirect was not getting that first place. That wasn't my place. This is, but I had to trust that it existed. I never even knew this building existed, Justin. Like it's a part of the city I didn't know. And I had to trust and let go. And it showed up and worked out perfectly.
I love that. One of the things that you do, I want to hear if this is like, if you're like, it just kind of is who I am, or if it's something you feel like you've worked on maybe over the years, but you show up with such a high level of energy, like your enthusiasm, your energy, your passion, your excitement, it just pours out of you. And how much of that is just like, I don't know, when I was like 3 years old, I just was a little ball of energy and just is who I am, or how much of it is like, for example, this podcast. You don't take 5 seconds to get warmed up. You're just boom, you're here, let's go, full speed. How much of that is something that you've trained yourself to do? Show up with positive energy, show up with good vibes, show up with a big smile, show up with a high level of passion. Like, is that natural? Or is that something you've worked on?
I hate to say this, but I think it's just like a God-given talent. And I know that sucks. I mean, it's also Diet Coke. Like, listen, I worked out this morning at the crack of dawn. Like, I do all the dumb things. But then, like, I had a work dinner last night. We were out late. Like, listen, I don't do everything perfectly, but I am blessed that I do have a high level of energy. However, ways that people can amplify their energy, working out, getting outside, huge for me, like huge gratitude practice, super, super helpful. Do things you love with people you love. For example, yes, when I was in the media business, I didn't love it all the time. So I would lean into the things I really like to do. They had me, headlining an event. I'm like, oh, I get to speak. Yeah, let's focus on that and look forward to the things that you're excited about when you're doing the tasks that you don't love, right? But spend as much time as possible doing things that you're really good at, that you like to be doing. If you're an accountant, you hate being a freaking accountant, you're meant to be an artist, find ways to paint at night and on the weekends until you can make that leap and go do it full time. You'll have more energy. Like when you're doing what you're actually meant to be doing, things start clicking and you just start feeling better and you feel excited. Like get excited. There's no reason not to be. Like start getting excited about that next opportunity. There's a fine line between fear and excitement. I'm always leaning into excited.
Yeah, you guys have heard that. So the physiology of fear and the physiology of excitement, it's actually the same physiology. Physiology meaning, if you think of a sprinter, right? They get like sweaty palms, like they start getting nervous before the race. And instead of saying I'm scared or I'm fearful or like what if this doesn't go well, you just say to yourself, you redirect it to I'm excited, because it's literally the same emotions. but they're excited emotions versus fearful emotions, right? Heather, I am loving to getting to know and to experience your energy. You can see one of your multiple kind of superpowers is this incredible passion that you have and this incredible enthusiasm that you have, and that there's like a realness and a rawness to it that you've remained like super kind of relatable and fun and humble and sincere, but also you have had this incredible success, but then also you have this kind of raw passion about you that I think draws people in. And I'm so grateful we had this time, and I just love what you're doing. So guys, make sure you go check out Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan. Her podcast is going to absolutely light you up. It's just a whole bunch more of this. It's just going to light your world on fire. Her books, Overcome Your Villains, Confidence Creator. Make sure you go follow her. You'll see her page is off the charts. So, Heather, I'm really grateful and appreciative that you would come here and just pour your unique gifts into all of us for the last 45 minutes or so. If there's any kind of final thoughts or final words as people are leaving you, you'd want to leave them with as they're heading into leading into their confidence and these reinvention and showing up with energy and passion and enthusiasm and being the best version of themselves.
Choose yourself. Like, I just think back to that moment that I chose myself. It was super scary. It's the best choice ever made. Like, you get one shot at this thing, right? Like, choose you. Live that big dream that's within you. It wasn't given to you for no reason. It was given to you to benefit the world. The world needs your light more now than ever. Shine bright, my friends.
Love it. Thank you so much. Absolutely amazing being on with you.